Welcome in, everybody. Glad you're with us on this Tuesday night for the draft recap episode of Party Time Podcast, Ep.5. Thanks for being with us. My name is Elijah Bond. With me is my co-host Alex Kane, and Alex, we sure do have a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah, we kind of let some stuff go, but whole playoff run was, you know, busy month there, and then we're right into summer and figure wait a little bit and get draft recap typed up and see what goes on with coaching GM positions, and we got a little bit of news there at least for one of them.
Yeah, so tonight we will go through all of the Phase 1 draft picks, all of the Phase 2 draft picks, and talk about possible returnees next season, and then finishing off with coach and GM talking. We'll start first with the Phase 1 draft picks. In the first round, the Blackhawks drafted Caleb Dinovich, 2009 defenseman. With Chicago Reapers 15U, he posted 25 goals, 46 assists, and 70 games played. Now, to me, that seems like a forward stat line, but he's listed as a defenseman, and I couldn't find much of any game film.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's, it's obviously gonna be a new coach and GM style, but if we continue the trend of bringing in a 16-year-old defenseman, I'd say he's probably top of the list that could, make the team next year, especially, if he's putting that type of numbers up already. You might as well, bump him up unless he's got a, plan to go play with the 16U Chicago Reapers and then, hang out a year. Obviously you won't know till if we get any camp information or all-star camp rosters or anything like that. So
Yeah, that's a major if because like we were talking about before we went live, the Blackhawks like to keep stuff really tight to the chest with main camp rosters, and obviously the GM talk we didn't really know about any rooms or anything until it was announced, and I'm gonna assume it's gonna be the same way with the coach. Um, we won't know of anything until it's announced. With the Blackhawks' second pick in Phase 1, they picked Nash Road, 2009 left winger, in White Bear Lake High School. He posted 11 goals, 14 assists, and 25 games played, so that's a point per game. And I believe he's the brother of Nolan Road of Tri City.
yeah, it's what is it? I think it's Nolan and Leighton Road. Leighton's I think the oldest. And if I remember, I think he played USHL. I just don't remember who he played for. But yeah, Nolan Road recently with Tri City, and yeah, they just obviously the whole family likes to come down USHL play. It's kind of you see that a lot with some of these Minnesota families. You got the Zmoliks that I think all three of them ended up playing for Cedar Rapids. Cleese. We had Garrett and then David for a season. And then Mason Clee was Lincoln or Omaha, one of those two Nebraska teams. So I mean, these families they seem to. I mean, most of the time it seems like they go to the same team. It's just kind of like a family bloodline type deal, but they like the USHL and it's a good league and it's quick
Yeah,
road trip for
and
them from Minnesota.
it seems like you were saying, it's like a thing with families. Like one brother plays, he speaks really highly of the league or the organization that he's in, and then the rest of the family follows. With the third pick in Phase 1, the Blackhawks selected Cole Swanson. Um, 2009 center slash left winger in 28 games with Hibbing Chisholm High School in regular season, 20 goals, 34 assists. And I thought Hibbing as a whole, and specifically the Swanson line, Cole and his brother, they played really well in the state tournament.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've watching some of them games. They're names that I recognize. Especially when we drafted them, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's when the tournament was going, I was like, damn, that kid can play and try to get him in the league. And we took him. I was half surprised that we didn't take him phase two. Take his brother phase two. But with more rounds in phase one this year than normal, it means we had less room on phase two, and you're using phase two for guys that are probably going to play right away this fall. And the brother nine times out of those Minnesota guys are going to go back and play high school hockey like that. So it's not doesn't make a lot of sense to waste a phase two pick like that. But it's something where you bring him and his brother both in to main camp, and maybe his brother shines, and you can say, hey, come play for us. We'll give you top line minutes, but
Yeah.
it's still those Minnesota boys like to go back and try to win a state title, and if they return most of their guys again next year, they obviously will have just as good of a shot to make a run next year as they did this year. So it'd be it's a tough draw to leave your brothers per se at back home to run for a state title when you still got 2 years you could play after high school really. So
Yeah, I don't really see Cole leaving Hibbing until he's possibly a senior because like you just alluded to, they've played really well, and if they return some of their guys, which they will, they'll have really a chance at winning that state title. With the fourth selection in the phase one for the Blackhawks, they selected Ryan Marquardt. Give that a
yeah,
shot.
yeah.
Uh,
Mark Hart, something.
Something like that. 2009 defenseman, 2 goals, 5 assists, and 25 games played with White Bear Lake High School.
Yeah, the point totals for defensemen are tough because especially high school, like
Yeah,
and up in whether it's Waterloo Warriors level, Minnesota high school, East Coast prep. A lot of times your forwards are gonna take the puck and try to do coast to coast and make the highlight reels, where the defensemen are just out there to keep the pucks in the zone and not let breakaways or cause turnovers. That's why with the Dejanovich, his numbers were absolutely crazy as a defenseman, but again, it could have just been somewhere they had a good power play and he was the power play quarterback and obviously racked up some assists or had some good screens in front. So it's defensive numbers, they just they're tough to put a whole lot of stock into. You just
yeah,
defensemen are more about plus minus and if they're on the ice when goals are given up or not. So
yeah. To your point, the Warriors this past season, Maddox Harn, he's going to go play in the NA3HL. I believe it's with Badlands. 5 goals, and he led the league with 40 some odd assists. I'd have to go back and look, but to your point, the Warriors had a good power play, and he was the top 3 offensive player for the Warriors this season. But no other defenseman on the team touched him in points. They're all below 20. So, yeah, like you said, it is tough to put stock in those uh, numbers. With the
side note about the Badlands Sabres. I've been seeing a lot of their stuff on Instagram since I've obviously liked a couple of the Waterloo Warriors posts. I think they're gonna have like an all Iowa team next year. I think I've seen
yeah,
they've got another like 5 kids out of Des Moines, Gilbert, Ames area. It's crazy.
yeah, it seems I don't know their league rules, but it seems like they're tendering a lot of players now. I don't know if um, that means they give up a bunch of picks or if that's just their way of signing.
Well,
But
I think the Null, I think they get like 5 or 6 tenders a year, and you'll see sometimes like when they trade a player, they'll trade like a pick and a tender. So like you could like if you have 5 tenders, but you trade a player away, you could add up like a 6 tender, which obviously just means in their league they can be used on anyone they want on their team for the next season, not just a 16-year-old. So I think they have like I don't know, obviously NA3. I don't look at that league pretty much at all unless the random Waterloo guy gets on there. But yeah, they just have it's kind of like a just a regular contract where I don't think they're even considered or not considered guaranteed you know half the games like you are in the USHL at 16 if you sign the tender.
yeah, it is interesting to um, compare the different rules to the league and how it differs from the top league in the in the world for juniors, at least in America, as the USHL or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, Moving on, Michael Lethel was the next pick, 2009, again a defenseman. Or excuse me, this is Caden Jackman, the next pick. Caden Jackman, 2009 forward, with the St. Louis Blues 15U, 46 goals, 38 assists, and 71 games played. He is the son of former NHLer Barrett Jackman. And to your point about a player we discussed earlier, Elite Prospects has him playing for St. Louis Blues 16U.
Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate. I did literally just see like last night that there was rumors that I'm pretty sure it's his brother Landon Jackman could be getting signed to this, to I think it was the OHL, and I believe Caden's been drafted to OHL too. Whether they go or not, who that thing's just there's a lot of fluidity in that situation until they figure out what rule set they're gonna have between the leagues and any sort of merging or new new league where everyone just joins together to make it everyone's on equal playing ground, which as some of us that pay a little more attention to college stuff, as we've seen over the weekend, their CHLs, there's a lot of guys on Twitter that they're feeling the heat because they've lost just over the weekend. They lost, four big name prospects, two to Bryn Chiswick up at North Dakota, and then one to Michigan, the goalie, and then I just saw one. I think he signed with like University of Maine. That these kids are normally in the CHL. If you're not making and if you're not making the NHL roster, you can't leave to the CHL until you're 20 because they in their I think they call it like indentured servitude or something stupid. But that you can't leave your junior team until you make the NHL or you're 20. So some of these kids that you could bounce back and forth, play some NHL games, but play AHL against older men and be used to it instead of being a 19-year-old playing 16, 17-year-olds and being able to push them around. Um, my biggest point of that is Connor Bedard was absolutely lighting up the WHL. He goes to pro right away, and obviously has good numbers, but he's not. He's on a bad team in Chicago too, but not been crazy. He's had a lot of highlights, but you also see him getting manhandled out there. Whereas the year after that, Macklin Celebrini plays for Chicago, goes to BU for a year, and then goes to the NHL, and he's out there holding his own with the grown men. Making these guys that have been in the league for 10 years look like they're newbies out there and just used to playing against that harder, tighter style hockey that the United
Yeah.
States college has, where Canada still is the just get out there and skate and just do your own thing out there. It's just it's a little bit different to the leagues.
So next one is Michael Lethold, 2009 defenseman, 6 goals, 14 assists in 34 games played with Philadelphia Junior Flyers 15-0 Triple A. Like you said, defenseman numbers are hard to put stock into, and I couldn't really find anything else on Lethold.
Yeah, I say some of these the phase one picks, they're kind of hard to talk about unless you have some sort of fun fact, because yeah, obviously the fifth that AAA hockey, it kind of depends on what kind of tournaments they get into, and like he only played 34 games in this season, but then Caden Jackman had 71 games with the St. Louis Blues, 15U, so it just kind of
Yeah.
it's weird how much like how many how much fluctuation there is in games played like between teams. So at this point, Waterloo's been pretty good at these phase one guys within a year or two are getting on the team, like we saw with Nicholas Kasiba that now is with Fargo, Jate, um, Orlowski, and then you got drawing blank Travis Lafleur that was in that same draft class that went back to play AAA hockey, went to the NAL, and it was practicing with the team at the end of the year, and it was obviously a healthy scratch. and just that's your natural progression where you have a few guys from the draft class that can make the jump there, second year of eligibility with the league, and then the other guys take a couple of years. Hell, a couple of years ago, Oliver Flynn, we had drafted him phase one like 3 years before he made the team. Whether he stuck around on an affiliate list or was just a, hey, we drafted him 3 years ago and have watched him since, and no one drafted him or protected him, so we'll add him to the team. And he came in, was a solid player, and then obviously ended up getting sent to Michigan in the or not Michigan, Madison to in the Miko Matika trade. So it's kind of fun, and when I'm making some of my list on my own time of potential players to make the team, it's always tough to on who's stuck around maybe a couple years if they stay on the affiliate list, and since that's not public knowledge for us, for the Waterloo Blackhawks, unlike some teams, it's tough to follow, and it's just whatever.
Yeah, and it is tough to try to map out a team for because I know some people um, rely on people like us to like map out a team and decide who's staying and who's going, and it's hard because you can't see anything. It's literally a best guess. Um, moving on to your point, next pick is Trevin Vargo. In 82 games played, Anaheim Junior Ducks, 15U AAA, 42 goals and 48 assists. And Michael Wetzel is the last pick, 34 games played, Jackman, 71. So, yeah, it's definitely a bit interesting.
Yeah, I say, and we've had a few draft picks from those West Coast League teams. Um, I don't think any of them have made it this far. They go elsewhere. Or they just we don't protect him again, and again the West Coast isn't a it's getting better for talent, but it's kind of a few and far between type deal. We've obviously had our fair share of guys between Calvin Vachon, James Hong, and there's been a couple other I can't off the top of my head I can't Reed, being from Arizona, obviously he moved to the East Coast early on to play for the Pittsburgh Penguins, it's a AAA team. So I mean, those guys, if they a lot of them, if they're serious about it, they got to move. But it is getting bigger out there, so it's obviously good to grow the game of hockey all over the country and would allow for new leagues or expansion or whatever to just make the game more available to people.
The next pick that had stats was Kyle Delaney. He is a 2009 defenseman, 12 goals, 26 assists, and 48 games played with South Kent School, 15U AAA.
So I'm just gonna try to, if there's anything I can find about Jack Lonke that we skipped since there wasn't any stats. It's kind of a weird. Some of these players, these 16-year-old players, like I'm looking, he played for Rosemounts, Bantam Double A. It's basically JV hockey, so yeah, you don't get good stats with that. And then back to Kyle Delaney again, just looks like he's able to move the puck, and whether he's making good passes or getting some deflections on shots, he's getting the assists and goals to go with his games played. So he's just looks like he's maybe got that little bit of offense to his game.
Yeah, and we'll see. But like you were saying with some of these phase one picks, it's all about development, and we'll see if he can develop. He seems like a good piece that the Blackhawks could have on the back end. But to your point, it's all about who can um, develop and who can't. Um, moving on, the next pick was Channing Goodwin. His picture won't pop up for some reason. um, oh, here's why. There we go. And then we go here. So Channing Goodwin, 2009 forward. In 27 games played with the Rosemont High School, 11 goals and 8 assists.
Yeah, I mean, just again, high school or Minnesota high school boy. Stats are what they are, and it kind of can go either way on uh, what like kind of what what section you're in and talent wise. But it looks like he's got some goal scoring on him, and obviously it'll just be a piece for the organization to watch and see if he progresses like they want, and go from there in the future.
The next pick was Landon Medin. Get his picture pulled up here. This is an old picture, but it's what I can find of Medin. 2009 forward, 66 goals and 51 assists with Rogers Bantam Double A this season. So, you were saying Double A is basically JV, but 117 points is still 117 points.
Yeah, I say either way, if you're doing that on there, you obviously got some talent to you. And Rogers, I think they made the state tournament up there this year. I don't remember if they won the first round or if they lost right away, but it could it could have just been something where he could have played varsity, but he would have got more ice time down a level. And obviously, being an 09, it would make him freshman roughly, just depending on birthdays. I don't. So just get him a lot of ice time running, power play, penalty kill, face offs if he's a center, and then next year move him up to varsity and see where his numbers go.
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting to see how his numbers differ from JV to varsity. Obviously, at the big level jump for someone like him. Um, Next pick was Miles Jinman, 2009 forward, 33 goals, 70 assists, and 70 games played with Bishop Kearney Selects 15U, AAA. He's originally, according to Elite Prospects, from Switzerland. He's a dual citizen in Canada and the US, which is interesting for someone as young as Jinman.
Yeah, I mean obviously, he's an assist a game, half a goal a game. He's averaging about a point, not quite point and a half a game, but still pretty good. Bishop Kearney Select. We've gotten Pedal and Jete out of there, so we've obviously got some eyes on the program and like what they put out there. And again, just with whether it's a next, not this coming season, the following season, the year after, if he makes the jump, it's just a wait and see and watch what happens type of game.
Yeah, and him being a dual citizen in Canada, to me, isn't the best in terms of his chances to come and play in Waterloo because it'll be easier for him to go and play in a league like the WHL or the OHL. Moving on, Ben Zillweger, let's go with that 2009 defenseman, 15 goals, 10 assists, and 30 games with the North Jersey Avalanche 15U AAA.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna keep repeating myself, but again, defenseman got some offense numbers to his game. It could just be a lot of power play time, and he's he could be a solid defenseman, just getting better scoring opportunities, and just see where the future lies for him.
And the last pick of phase one, and then we'll finally have more to talk about with the phase two picks. Last pick of phase one was Mark Pape, 2009 forward, 51 goals, 43 assists, and 62 games played with Pittsburgh Penguins Elite 15U AAA.
Nope, I mean we've Caden Harvey, Leo LaShawn, which is I would assume he probably has a good shot to make the team next year because he played a little bit of NAL this year on like a call-up thing with Team USA. Reed, I mean we've had some scouts obviously that see the Pittsburgh Penguins elite teams. Obviously the Fall Classic, the American Cup, Frosty Cup, or they're all just great scouting opportunities where maybe not obviously the Frosty Cup and American Cup we haven't been to as a team per se, but it's a nice place to send your scouts and you're going to see probably 10 or 15 games a day and have your eyes on hundreds of kids over the course of the weekend. And that's these teams end up there a lot, so that's why AAA is the besides Minnesota high school and a little bit of your northeastern prep hockey, AAA is the hotbed for hockey talent, and you can obviously find hockey talent wherever as long as you got some scouts covering the area. But as far as the United States, yeah, AAA is up there, and you know going back, we had skipped Gavin Veneruzzo, a
Oh,
09
yeah.
09 defenseman from White Bear Lake. He finishes up the trio of White Bear Lake draft picks in phase one. Um, yeah, 1 goal, 6 assists, 27 games, playing varsity, being in a 09. He probably was playing third line, maybe second line minutes. So those numbers are probably pretty good for being that young. And again, just see where he is his junior going into senior year, and if he wants to make the jump, and especially being a White Bear Lake, if they got a good team, I don't expect to see him for a full season until he's done with high school because they're they're perennial contenders to make it to state. So it'd be tough to leave that if you got a good team around you.
Yeah. Moving on, finally, to the phase two section of the draft. The first pick was Wyatt Harris, 2007 forward, 2 goals, 9 assists in 41 games with the Wisconsin Wendigo of the NAHL. 6'2", 180 pounds.
Yep, I mean, yeah, it does. I don't have a lot of points there, but Nall also isn't a huge scoring league, and I'm sure it's a little more forward heavy. It's just that don't go out there and make mistakes, and you obviously, for every high powered defenseman you have on your team, you want someone that stays on the blue line and is steady back there. Going into the season, I don't think I mean, we can always use more offense. It's not like we don't need it, but between Petal and White Rabbit and even Bogus, they've all showed flashes and be able to, handle the puck and go in behind the net and make smart passes. So I think, yeah, just shore up the blue line with some solid defensive guys and let those three returners, um, you know, they got their feet wet last year in the league, know what to expect this year and can train and step up into a leader role. Yeah, so you just fill some solid defenseman holes, and that's have that marked down that he's a defense or a forward, but he's a defenseman.
Okay, so that stat line would make sense then.
Yeah, I should say I was looking at that guy because when you took a few defensemen right away, but yeah, he's out there and doesn't allow don't allow pucks behind him and doesn't make mistakes. That's all you can ask out of a defenseman.
Yeah. I don't know that he will get if one if he will make the team next year or if it's going to be 2 years down the road, or two, if he does make the team, what the playing time would look like for him because of the three returnees on the blue line. Toby
I
Carlson was
I think if we used a first round pick on him, they're probably planning on him being on the team next year. And I mean, he's obviously still in 07, so even if he comes in and plays a second, third line role and gets gets his feet wet that first year, then he can jump up higher to line one primarily or more line two minutes the following season. I think it's a good like now and future pick. So we'll just obviously have
yeah,
to
I agree.
see what happens out of camp.
Toby Carlson was the second round pick, or yeah, second round pick. 06 forward with the Anchored Wolverines of the Knolls, 21 goals, 28 assists, and 57 games played, 5'9", 170 pounds. And to me, this seems like an immediate impact type of player.
Yeah, I agree. Come in, you know, size wise and stat wise, come in and immediately fill a Brendan McMorrow role. Just someone out there that can be on your line one power play or a good line two option, and just may not go to the front of the net and into the dirty areas a lot, but snipe the puck from the dots, or just get some good mitts on him and get around the defenseman, and get the goalie down and put a puck in the net. He obviously, now, especially the being up in Anchorage, they do a lot of traveling, and he's gonna be used to the road trips, and obviously can put pucks in the net with 21 goals and can help his teammates score with 28 assists. And yeah, being an 06, he's probably a plug and play 1 year player. I don't know. I don't know what his college commitment is off the top of my head.
I think
I
I
think he
believe
is,
it
but I don't
was
remember what it is.
Northern Michigan, but that could be another player that I was looking at.
I think
Um,
that's our next. I think that's the next pick, Laliberte.
yeah, so Avery Laliberte was the third pick in phase two for the Blackhawks. 06 defenseman, 7 goals, 32 assists, and 53 games played with Niagara of the Null. He's 6'2" and 196. And again, 06, I'd assume he's a plug and play. And with the 3 returnings, I think he'll slot in quite well.
Yeah, just go back to Carlson. Elite Prospects does not have him committed, which, especially with the rule change with the NAL, it doesn't surprise me. You're going to see some NAL players that don't get the Division One opportunities with the CHL being available, but that's good for either more Division One teams to grow, or it's going to make D3 or ACHA hockey that much better, and you don't have to play NCAA to make it the pros. But yeah, back to Laliberte. He just, again, as we've seen the past, two years, Chiswick and his scouting crew can go out there and they find themselves their good skating Canadian defenseman. I think I think Laliberte is gonna jump into that role again. Maybe, obviously depending on how the season goes, or like camp goes and what the team structure is. You know, jump right into a Compton role, run the power play, um, and just rack up the points. He's 2 years of junior experience. Elite Prospects has him going to Northern Michigan next year, but looking at their roster, he's the only defenseman recruit that would be going in this fall, and he would be like the 10th or 12th defenseman. And you're not, unless he's going to come in and play like line 1 minutes, probably you might as well have him jump up to a higher level league, in the States, play a year, and then bring him in next year as a 19, 20-year-old and have him be ready for the college. And because obviously it'd be a big jump from Manitoba Junior Hockey League, which is where Niagara is, to
Mm-hmm.
even Northern Michigan level, where they're not their conference isn't the highest level conference in NCAA, but they still put out decent hockey teams. So we'll see what happens there. That's going to be a fluid situation over the summer, just kind of checking the recruiting websites every once in a while and see if that changes. From what I can see now, I don't think he goes, but that's just my intuition of looking at the fact that they still have 10 defensemen on the roster plus him coming in. It just doesn't make sense like that to burn a year of eligibility when you're just gonna. Well, I mean,
Sit the
even
bench.
redshirt. Yeah, you're just gonna be a healthy scratch every night.
The next pick was Rio Triharni uh, with Eden Prairie. I believe that's most for high school. 17 goals, 36 assists, and 26 games played. And then with in like a call up situation at the end of the season, like a Caden Harvey was for the Blackhawks, 1 goal, 5 assists in 13 games with Wisconsin Wendigo, 6 foot and 180 pounds.
Yeah, Eden Prairie's high school. That's where Teddy came from. Um, yeah, obviously put up good numbers there. I don't I don't think they made a run to the playoffs this year, but yeah. And then obviously you're doing your, I would assume just after. Without looking deeper, I don't know if it's a before and after like what we see sometimes, but comes in 13 games and yeah, puts up 6 points, 13 games. Yep. obviously got a little bit of taste of that, and if he performs in camp, come right into the team next year and hopefully be a big contributor with that little bit of junior experience.
Yeah, him being an '07, like Harris, I mean, I would assume he plays, but I just don't know how much he was going to play. And um, the thing about uh, drafting is that mainly falls under the general manager position, and I don't know if the Blackhawks general manager, who will get to at the end of the stream, Kevin Gibson, I don't know if he had any say in that, or if he was hired when drafting took place. So um, that's also a talking point while we're talking about this. The next pick was Austin Breckelmans, an '08 Ford from Culver Academy, 29 goals, 32 assists, and 46 games played. 6 foot, 187.
Yep, again, Culver Academy, we've had uh, Jaden Kerr, and I believe that's where Connor Capote came out of. So we've had some pretty good luck with getting kids out of there. Being an '08, it'd be one of those things where he comes to camp. If he performs good, he might make the jump. He might go back. And I believe he's a Canadian, so you got maybe a little bit of a flight risk there too. But you can't be scared of that. You swing big and get a guy in here like that had that option, could be a program changer. So it's just gonna be a wait and see on that one again too.
Yeah, the next pick was let's see, I just pulled up here. This is Joey Fankhanel, '06 forward from Bemidji High School, 24 goals, 27 assists, and 28 games played. '06, I would hope that he's going to come in and play right away. 6'3", 201 pounds. So with that frame, that leads me to believe that he's going to be the Reed Morik type of uh, enforcer, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a elite prospects shows him for next year going to Janesville Jets, but I haven't looked if that's a tender. He could still obviously play for us if he makes the roster. And then if he goes down the null, whether he doesn't make it out of preseason or doesn't make preseason roster, then Janesville Jets up there in the null will still have his rights. But yeah, he's the type of guy. He's obviously a good goal scorer too. But 6'3", you put him right outside the blue paint in front of the net and make that goalie's life hell trying to see around him and just fill in that Reed Mordick or Grady Deering role where you go to the front of the net, take the vision away from the goal, you get a rebound, easy put back goal, and you just rack your points up, and it doesn't matter if the goal goes in from 6 inches or 20 feet away. It's still just 1 point on the board. So if you get an open side rebound that you just tap in, makes your life a lot easier. You don't have to be as perfect with the puck.
Yeah. The next pick is Camden Langfeld, '08 forward with
I got
Andover High, 12 goals, 25 assists, and 30 games played. And then he also had some experience with PEL Hockey Yak, 4 goals, 3 assists, and 15 games played. He's 5'11", 165.
Yeah, that PEL I looked up. It's like Prospects Elite League, I believe. If I could find it, but it looks like a fall, preseason hockey, like extra league they have up in Canada. But obviously can put points on the board. And over high, we've had Gavin Thorson, Garrett Shifsky again. It's kind of these same kind of schools keep putting out talent that these teams seem to they obviously know the program, know the coaches, and it's just a easy place. You know what kind of hockey player you're getting most of the time. Being an '08 Minnesota high school kid, I I don't think he makes the team this year. If it might, maybe it's a before and after, but being an 08, I don't even I being an 08, I doubt we even get that, but it is what it is when you're drafting
No.
from Minnesota.
Yeah, it's obviously a risk you take, and we'll get to that later with another player. Drive some kids from Minnesota that might go back. And 2008, I don't think there's much of a risk that even if he does make the team, that he'll stay around for the season. I would assume he'd go back to school. Next pick was Keegan Davis. Davis, uh, 27 games played with Benilde St. Margaret, 17 goals, 17 assists, and then in 7 games with Fairbanks 16U, 4 goals, 4 assists. He's 6 foot, 174.
Yep. We don't have too much to add to that. Just about the same as Langfeld. Obviously, can score. Uh, play a little bit of AAA hockey. That kind of confused me. You normally don't see like AAA and Minnesota high school in the same season, especially Fairbanks. Going to Alaska. I don't know if it was some sort of call up thing or maybe some games around Christmas when Minnesota high school's out. I just don't know. But again, it's 08 Minnesota. Doubt we see him next year. Just be a
Yeah, I agree.
put him on the affiliate list, watch him, and then whether you protect him or not before next year's draft, it'll just be a watch and wait.
The next pick, and this might be a big one next season, Eli Zucker, 2008 goalie. This graphic was posted by his, I, I'm going to assume, uh, like a agent of sorts. It says at the bottom, advising and representation. So Zucker, 2.9 or 2.79 goals against, a 9.933 percentage in 2 games with East Coast Militia 16U AAA. Obviously, that's a very small sample size. And 28 games played with Milton Academy, he had a 904 save percentage.
Yep, I mean young goalie, project kind of watch. I don't. I mean, unless shit absolutely hits the fan next year, I don't think he's on the. I don't think we see him. Um, 6'3", 181 pounds, good frame, big body goalie. If he can be quick on his edges from side to side, be a good down the line goalie. I wasn't going to cover it, but if anyone wasn't aware, other draft pick Cal Conway signed with Natchez Wild WHL. So that pretty much opens up the net to be Carter Casey's next year as long as he returns. At the time, during I think it was Easter. Saw him and his family at Longhorn Waterloo, straight out of his mouth that he'd probably be back next year. That was obviously 2-3 months ago now. Stuff can change, but after going on the run he did, I don't see a way you go back. In my opinion, going back to high school wouldn't be good for development. I get you want to go play with your guys you've been playing with your whole life, but you came in and led a charge to within one goal of winning a cup. Yeah, you're not gonna get any better experience like this. And if he if he commits to a college over the summer, the college may tell him, "We want you playing juniors." It's better competition.
Yeah.
And yeah, that especially he's obviously not looking at any sort of small no name college. He's looking at 4 powerhouses that
No.
are perennial contenders. And yeah, so that's obviously still a fluid situation. Obviously just a waiting here, but my assumption is from what I've got right from the horse's mouth is he'd probably be goalie 1 next year, and then I don't think
As
we
he
bring
should be.
Zucker
I
in
mean,
as an 08, to be a backup, find another or another free agent like Daniel Moore. There's plenty of goalies out there that can play hockey. It doesn't, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna play a guy that you drafted, but We obviously probably weren't expecting him to go to Canada, which there's two Minnesota goalies that back to back signed go up to Canada. Ray Eltz from Cedar Rapids, and then Conway. It's just part of the way it is, and you know
No,
as our
I think
players go north, their players come south. So I mean, it's going to be just a fluid situation that it's going to make everything better. It's going to make competition harder. Like you have to go out there and just bust your ass all the time. Otherwise, there's players ready to take your spot.
no, and I think I really do wonder what happened behind the scenes with Conway, because you get drafted by the USHL, and I do think that's a situation now. I don't know this, and I don't have any rumors to back this up. That money talks, because obviously the WHL is they can award scholarships, and the USHL I don't think can. I mean, they obviously bill it and whatnot, but I don't. I just don't think that that was a situation that the Blackhawk staff was expecting. And I thought when we drafted Conway that it would be Casey and Conway as 1 and 2 next season, and now we'll see what happens. But um, obviously, it's something to watch over the summer months. The next pick that I can't find a picture for this guy, but Jackson Snyder, '07 defenseman, 30 goals, 14 assists in 54 games played with the Camrose Kodiaks.
Yep, I mean he's playing in probably the second highest league outside of the CHL, the Alberta Junior Hockey League. Uh, you know, solid frame on him, 6 foot, 174 pounds. 17 points, 75 pims. Hopefully that's not all just stick penalties. Maybe got a little bit of grit to him. Come in, you know, stick battle with the guy in front of the net. And again, he may not even come down to being Canadian. He might want to stay Alberta Junior Hockey League, but
if it means anything,
go ahead.
Sam Huck came from the Alberta Junior Hockey League, so it's not uncommon. But being from Canada, I don't think it's likely.
Well, and with the rule changes, that pushes Alberta Junior and BCHL. BCHL is probably a little more closer to USH level of competition. Alberta is more like, I'd say, not quite down to NAL level, but it's definitely under USHL and BCHL, as in quote unquote ranking wise. So if you want to get seen more, play a little better competition, then you try to make the jump. But we obviously don't know what's going through these teenagers' heads. Like it's a tough prospect to come down to the States from Canada, but it's happened before, and obviously it's worked out for a lot of guys, and it hasn't worked out for some guys. It's just going to be a case by case basis.
I agree. The player shown on screen right now is Daniel Browning, defenseman with Minnetonka High School, 7 goals, 8 assists in 26 games played. And going back to what we said about the phase one picks, the defensemen in high school aren't as offensively minded as they are in a league like the USHL. So the stat lines aren't important, so to speak.
Yep, yeah. It's just a 08 defenseman. Doubt we see him besides main camp this year. Minnetonka again. Damn near every year they're at least semifinals in the playoffs. So it's I guarantee he. I don't guarantee, but 99.9% say he goes back unless he just I didn't. Bogus was a surprise last year that he made the roster just being a 16-year-old defenseman, but that kind of
I agree.
between that and Nyes, it seemed like a trend that Smaby and Chiswick were liking if they could come in and perform in camp. That bring them up to the USHL, and if they can't hang, then you send them back down. It's a risk reward type deal, but they just obviously have to see what happens.
The next player that the Blackhawks picked was Carter Sproul, 05 forward. So I believe he will count as an overager. Now, don't quote me, but I think um, he'll count as an overage pick for the or player for the Blackhawks. 16 goals, 32 assists, and 56 games played. Split between two teams, Oklahoma and Watertown of the Null.
Yep. I mean, as far as I know, he'll be an overager. I don't think there's any exemptions to that. Um, we kind of, we know word of mouth. Cade Hawkins is back next year. As far as I know, Brock Schultz is back because he's not listed going to college. Now, whether obviously he had a spleen injury, shouldn't be anything to worry about return wise. Those are two of our, three overagers. We can have four up until something like the first weekend in October. Rumors, I've heard rumors that Ty Mason is returning. Everything online has him going to Western Michigan, but again, it's one of those things. He goes to Western Michigan and gets absolutely buried on the depth chart. Not a lot of point if he's eligible. Now I believe he's played 4 years of junior hockey, but with Canada, it's weird because like that's the same thing that Miles Hillman fell under. I thought he
Mm-hmm.
was done, but he came back because he had started playing up there at 15. So he still had 1 year of eligibility in USHL eyes. So that's how we got him back for that extra year. But yeah, so Carter Sproul could have 3, maybe 4 overagers if he makes the team. He's been point producer, and then Nall, split Oklahoma Warriors, and then this year he got traded, but 40 points with Watertown, which was, if I remember right, he was like the third worst team in the league. 134 PIMs. I know for a fact just because we had a couple prospects on there, so I had followed them on Instagram, and yeah, he can go out there and rough it up and score just as good as anybody. Uh, I think he would come in and fill that Bradley Walker shoe immediately. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's the exact same type of player. Played in the Null South, which if anyone's unaware of it, the Null South it's like going back to watching 1980s 1990s hockey. It's not a rare thing where they have line brawls down there. They call it the Dirty South for a reason. It's a you know rough part of that league to play hockey in, and if you go there, you got to be tough. And then yeah, Watertown. Obviously, we've had eyes on their team. Whether Travis LaFair was there playing, we sent Lachey there, and he went there with Waterloo gear. Whether it's we loaned him to him that year, and he's still a possibility for the net this year. Won't know unless I see camp roster or any sort of camp coverage. I doubtfully get from the league or from the team.
Oh,
But yeah,
it's I, I
we might
doubt.
get told that camp's happening, but you get the odd one or two prospect interviews of the phase one picks that we may never see again. And then just kind of jumping ahead a little bit. We drafted 2 more guys that had played with Watertown this year. In the rest of this phase 2 draft. So they obviously liked what some of the players brought to the team and had plenty of eyes on there if they were up there to monitor our 2 prospects that were already there. So, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
To your point about Ty Mason, I just pulled up his Instagram post. For those that don't know, for those that don't follow players on Instagram or social media platforms, his uh, description of his post says, "What a ride! Thanks Party Town for an unreal first year." So, scrolling through the comments of that post, I'm gonna assume this is a friend of his. Lucas Jeffries says, "Fifth year incoming," and Ty Mason responds to that with a um, response that makes me think that he's going to play a fifth year of junior hockey like Miles Hillman did. And so he could be a returner. But to your point, I'm not sure that how the overage system or the overage system would work for that. Um, Next pick was McLean Egret. This is an old picture of him, but South Kent, 52 goals, 68 assists in 77 games played.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his elite prospects, right now he's slated to be going to University of Massachusetts next year. I would assume he makes the jump. And probably, a lot of times the university was like, hey, play a year of juniors, then we'll bring you in just so because he'll be going from AAA to you don't see a lot of times AAA to college. It's just a lot of times it's too big of a jump. Yeah, obviously he can score 100 points in 63 games, nothing bad in eye at. And then I don't know what the PHC is with South Kent, just an extra league probably, but 20 points in 14 games. I think he comes in and again, probably jumps right onto a power play line. And yeah, can slot into probably a second line, maybe third line role, just depending on what the makeup of the rest of the team is.
I agree. Next pick was Casimiro Carlson with Rockridge High School, 23 goals, 31 assists, and 27 games played. He's an 07 forward.
Yep, and this is the type of kid here that he's got 2 years of. He might be. I guess he might be a senior because he's got 2 years of Bantam too. So he might like legit just be done in high school, but being in Rockridge High School, it's not a big name high school up there as far as I'm aware. Just being down here, he made a couple games with Watertown. Got a couple years till he goes to college. 07, he's kind of in that mid range where the join this league or go down to the Null. And if he does go to Null, I'm assuming it'd probably be Watertown again, and it seems like we send some scouts that way, and you don't want to. These teams don't have a true like affiliate team they play for, but it's kind of like phase one where it seemed like Waterloo was like in White Bear Lake. It seems like they like Watertown and the Null, even if they weren't putting the points up. But first year team in the Null, that's tough to know what you need in a team. I mean, look at Smaby and Chiswick. That first year can't really say any of the team was on them because they were just starting in or announced again after the draft, after camp. But then we have 2 years of really skilled hockey teams that get pushed around a lot, and then it was an article I believe wrote about Bradley Walker in an interview by like the Courier, KWWL, that last summer at camps maybe pulled all the players aside, sat them down before camp started, and just legitimately said, I'm tired of getting beaten the high pressure situations. Like we want a team ready for that. And that's kind of like what Bradley Walker said. He's like, I may not come in and score the most goals, score a lot, but I know my role and I go out there and do it. And he got rewarded a few times. He had a breakaway goal. I don't remember what game it was off the top of my head, but you go out there, play hard, got rewarded. Side note on that, I was watching. There's a YouTube video out there that has every single fight in the league from this past season. I was watching it. Kind of forgot that at one point this year, Easton Houston and Bradley Walker fought each other before they were on the same team. So that's just kind of a little, just a little funny. I can't think of the word, but just a little quinky dink of the season. They fought each other, tried to punch each other's noses in. Then later in the season, they were on the same team trying to win a cup together. It's just kind of funny sports stuff you see like that.
Next pick was Cooper Fanon, 06 forward, so he'll play next season with the Lone Star Brahmas, 7 goals, 15 assists, in 39 games played.
Yeah, I mean, again, elite prospects. Shows him going to St. Lawrence next year. Don't know if that'll happen. Don't know what their player situation looks like. I've looked at it. He scored the game-winning goal to send his team to the Robertson Cup Finals in the NAL. Very controversially,
Yeah.
they I don't remember if we posted it in the group, but it was very clearly kicked in. Um, he's just nothing knocking him. He just trying to put puck in the net and try to get away with something, and he did. But if I remember right, they weren't allowed to review it basically. But like they showed the replay from the overhead cam about like what we had in Muskegon on games 3 and 4, and it was a very like probably the most clear kicking motion besides watching soccer to score a goal I've ever seen.
Yeah,
It was it
yeah.
was blatantly
I saw,
obvious.
I saw that clip, and then I don't know if it was the NAL official Twitter account, but they had to post something. This is why it wasn't reviewable.
Yeah,
Blah blah
yeah.
blah
It was
blah.
it wasn't it wasn't in their rules to review it, which is
Stupid,
just
I think.
ridiculous.
The next pick was Trey Fredenberg, 07 forward, 17 goals, 42 assists in 30 games, Stillwater.
Yep. Unless he makes a knowledge jump because he doesn't make the team. I'm assuming he's on the team next year. He's graduated from what I can see on their hockey website. Yeah, he put points up from them. Went into the Minnesota Mallards. I believe, in the NAL, I believe again they were, not good. 4 goals, 19 assists after playing high school. Looks like the potential's possibly there. Have a good camp, make the team, and see where the season goes. It'll just be interesting to see what happens.
The next player that the Blackhawks picked, maybe.
Say Alexander
Uh,
Nicklin.
yeah, so Alexander Nicklin, 4 goals, 15 assists, 27 games played with Hermantown this season. He's oh wait,
Yep,
so
project
I
pick.
yeah,
Hermantown. Yeah, we've got again. It's just another big name high school out of there. I believe that's where Aaron Pionk played high school at. Yeah, it's not all these picks are for this season. They're still trying to build for next season, which normally this is about the range of the draft where you start seeing them taking like 09s. But if I remember right from looking this year, since they added rounds to the phase one, the 09s weren't allowed to be picked in this draft, since they
no.
had more room to take them in the first round or the first phase.
The next pick was Justin Bartley. Let's see if I can get his picture pulled up
Yep.
quickly.
Another Watertown player in the NAL. 1 goal, 10 assists in 33 games. Yeah, here, let me see. Yeah, so I mean, even being on a relatively bad team like that, he was positive on plus minus, so he's not out there, making mistakes. 2 seasons ago, he played 1 game for Fargo, and then was playing Chicago Mission last year, but didn't. They don't have any stats there, so I don't know what happened there. Yeah, this is just another risk reward. Bring him in, have him, put eyes on him, comparing him to players that you're trying to pick for your team next year. 6'2", what was it, 194 pounds. Again, just another big body defenseman that, he may not come to the team to score goals, but just play good defense and not let goals in.
Next pick was 08 defenseman and Ryan Hecker. Um, 5 goals, 9 assists in 27 games played with Avon Old Farms.
Yep, again, 18, or an 08. defenseman playing prep hockey. I just doubt we see him next year. Again, just kind of a future build your prospect pool for future seasons. Yeah, he's a little bit, 5'11", not the biggest body, but if he can skate, and I mean, Bogus isn't the biggest guy, but he was out there throwing bodies around, and I mean, over the course of the season, you could definitely see his progression of turning into a solid defenseman. There's time period kind of with like the rest of the team that mid-November area where you were about ready to write the season off because the team just didn't look cohesive. They didn't look like they were playing together, and it was just it was a bad time period of the season. And after that, they pulled their shit together and obviously started playing good hockey and went on the run we did. So it's
Uh, Next pick was Ethan Sunval, '07 defenseman, 12 goals, 30 assists in 31 games played. So no, this is Sunval. So a note about phase two: teams pick. If those that don't know, teams pick until their protected list for next season are filled. So the Blackhawks 25 picks. I think Des Moines had 18 or 19 picks. They were done picking well before any other team was done picking. So it's stuff like that is stuff to keep in mind. Sunval played with him and Chisholm, so I believe it's the whole picture.
yeah. So I mean, we were probably up there watching Swanson and noticed this guy, and he this is the type of guy. I mean, yeah, he's in '07. He's still young, probably going back to high school. But he comes in the camp, shows he can hold his own and can put pucks in the net during camp. And it's type of season where he could extend an offer, or they could say, hey, we want you to play for us if you want to leave your high school. Probably goes back if they return their team. Obviously, can make a run to the title again. But with just looking at his stats, he's the type of player that maybe does it before and after. I don't know. It seems like lately, I think Thorson was the last one to do that, if I remember correctly. And it just there's a lot of risk there because I don't if they're doing before and after, I don't know if he would technically take up one of the 25 spots you have, or if he could be like the 26th person and just play a few games as an affiliate before the season. But it seems like we've kind of gotten away from that before and after and just bringing
Mm-hmm.
any guys up after the season.
The next pick was second to last pick for the Blackhawks was Ryan Shagabay. 20 goals, 38 assists, and 28 games played with War Road. He's a 2023 Mr. Minnesota Hockey. Um, and then his brother Jason Shagapay played for Green Bay.
Yep, I mean, just again, he comes from a typical Minnesota high school hockey powerhouse in War Road. Produce. I think if I remember the stat, I think per capita they have produced the most NHL players
Mm-hmm.
in the United States. And obviously, they probably haven't produced a bunch, true number wise, but small town that puts out enough NHL talent to get a stat like that. There's obviously some good hockey bloodlines there, and the brother came in, and I believe he had a pretty good year for Green Bay this year, playing on a pretty skilled Green Bay team that couldn't keep pucks out of their own net. So, yeah, the potential's there.
Yeah, that was definitely Green Bay's downfall this year because they were. Let me tell you, they were
They were a
outstanding
good damn hockey
offensively.
team.
Um, Last pick of phase two, running out the protective list for next season. Alexander Andre, 2008 uh, forward. He played with Northern Manitoba Blizzard. 2 goals, 22 assists, and 58 games played.
Yeah, I mean it's just again one of those junior A programs in Canada. I believe his team. I think if I remember right, his team won their League Cup, and I think it was like a 2-1 score in fourth overtime. So I mean he's got that playoff run in him, but being an 08 forward, it might still take a year or two to develop. He's kind of might just be a flyer pick that get him to camp, see what he can do against USH level competition, and go from there on how he performs at camp.
So that wraps up the draft portion of this episode. Now we will get to uh, arguably a really important part of next season's team, the returnees. With that, we can see Caden Hawkins will return, and he was a power play merchant. Some would say he was really good on the power play this season. Brock Schultz returns after his season-ending injury in the playoffs against Sioux Falls. Chase Jute returns. He's an overager. Jesse Orlowski returns. Hope I the one thing that worries me about him is obviously his really bad knee injury against Omaha and how he will be the same after that.
Yeah, I can take it from there. The decor, bogus, pedal, white rabbit. Um, yeah, you're returning half your decor. It's better than we've had some years. I think at one point we only returned one this year, really. Besides, well, it was two Nyes, and then obviously he got traded. And then like we discussed earlier, should be Carter Casey and net on top of a free agent from camp on whoever the coach feels do the best. One interesting thing I kind of noticed about Caden Hawkins is it seemed like at the end of the playoffs he kind of got pushed down the lineup. And I think that kind of hurt his production there a little bit in this season because he was changing lines, playing with guys that were more of like your grinder, don't get scored on type. And obviously they were still scoring too, but I don't know. I think it was more something where other guys were catching up to Caden and they just had to try to find something that worked, and it was working for a little bit, so he just kind of got buried. I foresee him being line 1-2 next year, number one power play again. Obviously,
Yeah, I agree.
you park him as he's got his own little OV spot. You can just park in the right dot, wait for that one timer, or fake the one timer and put the puck across the crease to an open side or something. I think him obviously I think him and Jate are going to be focal points of the offense next year, especially if I noticed postseason Jate started throwing the body around a little bit more. So if he can get a little bit more of that two-way where he hits some guys and scores pucks, it'll improve his NHL and college stock even more. Which not that he's unless he flips from Wisconsin, it's not going to help much there. It's just going to make him a better two-way player. And then Jesse, I have him down as returning. Haven't seen anything to say otherwise. He's not going to college from what I can see. If everything heals good, I think I kind of felt bad for him. Right there, he really
Yeah.
seemed to be kind of taking off and figuring out how to play in the league. Adjusting and how to use his size. So I think his season was only going up when he hurt his knee. Get a good off season of training. He'll come in fresh and know how to play right away, and he could see him take a big jump too.
The last couple of weeks have really worried me with Carter Casey and his status to return because it sounds like he wants to continue to play high school hockey with his friends and his so-called brothers. But with him now down to his final four in college, it's UND, Wisconsin, and there's two others, Denver.
Denver, Wisconsin, or you said Wisconsin, didn't you?
Yeah.
Minnesota, duh. That's the easy one.
Okay. Yeah. So, so those are the final four, and I have to think, just based on who's where, that UND is the front runner. especially with the NIL money that they have. But the 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 pull of playing at home in Minnesota, just down the road from Grand Rapids, it's got to be intriguing for Casey.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting situation. A lot of people are talking about it on Twitter. That Bob Motzko, coach for UND, or not for UND, for Minnesota, he doesn't. They don't keep Minnesota goalies home very often, so that's kind of a a wrench in it. But then again, or not, God damn it, North Dakota, not Notre Dame. They're gonna have they just got Jan Spoonar from Dubuque, so he'll be a freshman. You know, at oldest he'll be a junior when Casey gets there probably. They still got Caleb Heil that is gonna be playing next year for Madison again. That will go in, and then I think Gibson Homer, Arizona State transfer. I think he's a junior, so he's got 2 more years. So I mean, if he does want to go to UND and stay with playing for Smaby and Chiswick, it'd bode well for keeping him around here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But if he does stick with the team this year again, has another phenomenal year, and wants to make the jump right away, yeah, Minnesota, Wisconsin, or Denver's probably gonna open up before UND. Unfortunately, being a North Dakota fan, it'd be cool to keep Casey as someone I can cheer for, not feel bad if my
Mm-hmm.
team scores against him. Um, but yeah, that'll be an interesting development, and I think if he commits right away this summer, I don't. I think they're gonna want him to make the jump earlier. That way, you know
Yeah,
if they want to bring him in before he flips anywhere else, if someone walks in and drops a suitcase of money on his table, they don't lose that commitment of a player like that. But it's no one knows what's going through Carter's head besides Carter and maybe his parents. But it just college is a different animal now with being able to you know give pay the players a little bit. Now you got your Canadian players coming in too more often, so it's all the next 2 years is going to be a interesting and probably ever changing scenario of what is actually going on.
yeah, that was a point I was getting at with Carter committing right away. If he does commit this summer, I have my doubts about him playing high school hockey next year because a full season in the USHL will probably bode well because, like you said, Jan Spoonar is at UND. Caleb Heil will be at UND. He's played that'll be his third year in the league next season with Madison, second with the Capitals. But I think it's just a trend with college goalies most of the time that they've played at least 1 year somewhere of junior hockey. Um, Moving on, this is the final segment of tonight's podcast, Coach and GM Talk. It was announced yesterday that the Blackhawks hired Kevin Gibson as the new general manager. Um, he comes from the Detroit Red Wings organization. He was a scout there. He played for Sioux City in the USHL when he played. He was a 4-year pro in the ECHL, two with the Quad City Mallards. And in a quote that was a part of the article that the Blackhawks put together, quote, "I am looking forward to joining the Blackhawks and building teams that will continue the great tradition Waterloo is known for. The organization is renowned for developing talented players and having one of the best atmospheres in junior hockey," said Gibson. "I can't thank the Red Wings enough for all that they have taught me. My time with Detroit brought the opportunity to work with incredible mentors and hockey minds. I am grateful for the scouting and development wisdom they have passed on. Adding in the work that I have done during the last 6 years to both relationships and familiarize myself with the junior and youth levels. I relish the opportunity to put together Waterloo's next Clark Cup contender," end quote. To me, this seems like a really good hire, being a former scout in the NHL, because Brent Chiswick's scouting staff did a really good job, and I think having a former scout himself as the general manager bodes well.
Yeah, it's kind of a interesting dynamic there because he's still got your NHL connections. One of my immediate thoughts is now he's got connections with the Red Wings if they got any prospects, whether it's overseas or they want to keep close eye on somebody, it could be something where they're like, hey, you want to make room for your team, we'll send someone your way, just and you can report back to us as a non-official scout pretty much. You'll see that a lot where colleges or pro teams will, especially pro teams, if they draft an overseas guy, they want them to come over here and get used to our the smaller hockey sheet, the smaller ice sheet compared to overseas a lot. Obviously, it would be different in Waterloo still having the Olympic ice sheet. But yeah, it's interesting. Again, even if it is just a scout, being able to bring someone in from a pro level team, it's kind of interesting. Fun fact: any of your baseball people out there, his dad, Kirk Gibson, hit game winning, walk off home run in the World Series. Viral clip, the Los Angeles Dodgers, where he's running around the base, pumping his arm. It's kind of just a if you pay attention to baseball, I'm sure you've seen the clip multiple times. It's
Oh yeah.
almost all highlight reels or hype tapes that they put out. So that's just it's kind of cool discovering that stuff. But yeah, connections to pro leagues, just invaluable. You know, yeah, other scouts he knows that he can talk to and what they're seeing from players, and especially I think it was the last 4 years, 3 years, whatever it was. He was primarily junior scout, so he's been in these arenas, and hell, he might have if we knew if we knew he was the guy a couple weeks ago, and he's been watching players for for the pros, he might say, hey, let's invite these guys to main camp. So I've been watching them for a couple years and seeing what they're playing like. So it throws a good wrench in the situation, because he's obviously had eyeballs on a lot of hockey, and
Mm-hmm.
he knows what the NHL wants. So if they wanted to start building an NHL style hockey team here, in play style and like hardworking, perfect guy to do it. And it's another one of those, he'll probably come in for 3-4 years and then go to college or back pro, some sort of general manager role. But that's what this league's about. It's about developing players, developing refs, developing coaches, scouts, GMs. It's just part of it. We were like everyone said, we were absolutely spoiled having PK for as long as we
Mm-hmm.
did. Like he could have easily went pro, but you just find them guys that like this level and like developing players. Whereas you get to, especially now, college, where it's basically a minor league, um, and pros, you don't have guys there that are trying to earn it. They expect you to give them $1 million to play hockey for a year. They don't have to earn their spot anymore hardly. It's just they expect to show up and have a spot on the ice.
Yeah, and the coach situation, like you said, years, almost 2 decades of PK Hanley, and another half decade of Matt's maybe. I think you'll you're going to see other coaches start um, filing through, not just Waterloo, but um, just the league in general. Like the league has recycled coaches throughout the years, and the two constants in the league have been Mark Carlson and was PK O'Hanley.
Yeah, and it's not in here to trash any other team, but again, it's kind of where the Blackhawks were heading. The game had just, some of these old boys. I think the game just passes them by. It's like it's a new style of hockey, and PK obviously put good teams on the ice, and they were contenders at most years. But even that first year with Smaby, it was just fun to watch hockey. And power play, we were moving around, passing pucks. Where PK, PK, his power play was one guy in the front of the net, four guys in a box, and just pass, 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 and maybe throw a shot on net. Whereas
Yeah, I remember.
Smaby, go ahead.
I remember growing up. Um, I would just count how many passes the Blackhawks power play would take before they shot the puck, because if PK was coaching it, it was pass, 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 turnover, clear, pass, 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 shot,
Yep.
clear. and um, I agree. Especially the last couple of years, under maybe the Blackhawks power play has flourished, and I think that's just the new style of hockey that you're referring to. Um, as far as coaching and um, that side of the thing goes, I haven't heard anything um, concrete or any rumors. I thought James Mullen, who was linked to the league, was a strong candidate as an assistant at, I think it was Merrimack. He was a strong candidate to become the new head coach, but obviously he assigned an associate head coach job with Fargo, which normally means that he'll be the next head coach once the current head coach leaves. So um, we'll see on that. I just think that um, I still believe that Brett Olson could be is my front runner right now to become the head coach. I think they'll
Yeah,
just promote him.
yeah. I feel like if that was happening, he'd be promoted. But who knows? They won't. Maybe they want to just because we only got what it'll be three weeks pretty much from the last game to camp. Might just be getting through camp, and they know who they want now or have already,
Mhm.
and there's no point in worrying about doing anything before camp. Get camp done, pick your team, and then say, hey, yep, here's our coach. Pipe dream still. Pavelski, I think that'd just be awesome. And then,
Yeah,
but yeah, haven't seen anything concrete. There's been some people that said that they've heard who it is, but you don't hear anything else out of it, so you don't know. Then yeah, I've seen
I
you, and I've
think
asked
I
I've
think
asked a few guys on Twitter, and they haven't had any insight into the scenario either. So
yeah I think some people um, say that they know, and then when you ask, there's no response, and I don't know. I think people are growing impatient, but I just don't know why people would grow impatient. I understand that it's a new direction of Blackhawks hockey, but um, I think people are more timid now after Smaybe left than they were when PK announced his retirement.
yeah, I'm saying yeah, I say it's what it is. I mean, it could be worse. I mean, yeah, it kind of sucks it's happening coming off of a run to the finals. But I'm still a firm believer we were lucky to have him this season. I had seen multiple times on Twitter before this past season that his name was out there for college jobs. That but I think he obviously all these all these people kind of have their own connections and stuff. He might have heard, hey, UND's looking at getting rid of Barry if he has another subpar season, and it could there's a possibility there. And the one I don't remember where it was, but there was some rumors out there that maybe was a favorite for the head coach job there, but the players kind of said, "Hey, we want Dane Jackson to have his shot. He's been here. We like him. Let's go do that." And then yeah, so maybe he goes as an associate head coach again. Sit there for a couple of years, learn your way college works as a head coach, and then whether Dane Jackson moves on to pros or God forbid UND falls apart again and they fire him and then bumps maybe up. I mean, I think it's just again another stepping stone for Smaby to get back to his alma mater to be a head coach. And it kind of from the beginning seemed inevitable. The young guys like that normally don't want to stay in one spot for a long time.
So to wrap up, we will try to make an episode when the new coach is announced. Hopefully, it's in the next couple of weeks, as that would be perfect for a main camp episode with rosters and everything. Um, and then when the schedule comes out, no, we'll update you guys then. But that's going to wrap up tonight's podcast. Thanks for tuning with us. Hour and a half long, so lots to talk about, and we definitely covered it all.
Yep.
Alrighty, for Alex Kane, I'm Elijah Bond, and this has been the Breakdown Podcast, Episode 5.
Have a good night.